I'd echo those thanks. Thanks for all you're doing over there, Esther. So I'll put those recommendations. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Thanks again. Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, welcome Helen Downs, Chief Executive. Helen, we've read your report, but there may well be things you want to say extra to it.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present for our 6-month report. First of all, can I give apologies for our President, Mark Scully, who's unable to be with us today. Since you've seen my report, I just thought I'd pull out 4 key areas of activity. The first being around our work with youth, which we're doing in conjunction with Hutt City Council and Upper Hutt City Council, around getting young people into career pathways and work experience and apprenticeships and developing their work-ready skills. So an area where we've put a lot of effort in in the 6 months of this reporting schedule, and are getting excellent results. So it's a very exciting area for the Chamber to operate in, and it's very clear that coming to the youth from an employer perspective and from a buyer perspective is quite unique and is very much valued by our employers and is getting great results for our young people as well. So that's one of the key areas that I think is in this last 6 months, the last 6 months of last year was a real success. The other area, one of the other areas is the Expo. So the Business Expo that happened in October was very much in response to COVID-19 and represented the program over a 2-week period, represented some of the key themes that we were getting from business through the period of all of last year and helping them to address the challenges that we were all facing, and things like the Manufacturing and Tech Forum, getting 100 people in the room with the Minister of Finance to hear the needs of that sector as part of our recovery was a highlight, and provided it was I think 8 events and a whole pile of live stream online events as well, and the online stands are still there, still being promoted. So just a way to connect people in an environment that was very uncertain at the time and needed to operate at any level of lockdown. The third area I'd like to just mention is the COVID support, Hutt Valley COVID-19 support group, which has continued to operate. We operated every week in terms of disseminating information and trawling all the government sites for the latest business relevant content and getting that out, and the group remains connected and able to adjust at any level or potential level of lockdown. In this 6-month period there was certainly some risk about entering another lockdown, and as a group I think we were very well prepared to get ahead of that and be ready to function and provide the support needed. And we've met again this year and we keep in touch and that sort of thing. So it remains in place, it remains to get fed and watered, and at the moment it's not demanding massive amounts of time, but that could change any minute, as we've seen in Perth or Fiji this week. And then the fourth area I'd like to just highlight is the advocacy section in this 6-month period of this report. A lot of work engaging with business and government, bringing the two together. We've tendered for things with MB to try and raise the profile of Hutt Valley business. We haven't been successful in winning those tenders, but we've been very successful in terms of having a loud voice with ministers and saying, look, your way you approach these things is not reaching the small and medium-sized companies that are typical in the Hutt Valley and who seriously need support. So we will continue to advocate for them and provide that feedback into government so that maybe they can change the way, finally, how they deliver service from a central government perspective to help individual businesses. So those are just the 4 key areas that I think highlights over that 6-month period. I did also think I could share with you some of the latest interim information from our current customer satisfaction survey, because I tend to get a customer business confidence survey. I tend to get questions around that at this meeting. So I can tell you that businesses are seriously suffering from labour shortages and the ability to recruit. The economic threat of COVID remains with them every day, and the inability to source raw supplies and raw materials and product is rapidly becoming a major inhibitor to business. So, and we've not seen that before or even had a need to ask those questions, but just it's coming through quite strongly and quite repeatedly. Costs are rising rapidly on business, and profitability is still going backwards. So there's real pressure and conflict in there from a business owner's point of view. So they're not feeling that their market is able to sustain price rises, but certainly the cost of doing business is increasing very quickly, and that causes real pressure. There is still a percentage of businesses that are at risk of closing in the Hutt Valley as well. So, I think there's around about, 16% still that say they're still at risk of closing down. So that's come back from where we would have been 6 months ago, but the impact of COVID is not something that we're beyond. It is a continued impact, and businesses continue to feel the pain and are still trying to adapt as rapidly as they can, and some are not making that because your cash will run out before the changes can be made, and that's not their fault as such, just the reality of the situation we're in. So although people will tell you the economy is strong and things are looking good, there is a lot of pressure on employees who are working very long hours and employers who are trying to keep their businesses afloat and to adapt to all the change that's happening around them, which is continuing.
It's a pretty grim picture you paint there. Helen, any questions for Helen? Councillor Rashid.
Thank you, Helen. Just want to acknowledge, I know Chamber does great work, especially the work that you're doing with the youth. I think you have really closed the gap. There was a huge gap between getting the right apprentices, because most employers don't have time to go and search for it. So you're doing that job and connecting the students and to the right trades. So well done.
Deputy Mayor Lewis, and then Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Your report for this youth work is fantastic. 23 placements is really good. In the workforce for the businesses, are you expecting to see more business go out, out of business, like small businesses in the Hutt? Okay.
Councillor Mitchell, and then Councillor Hislop, and then Mayor Barry.
Thank you, Helen, for the report and all the great work that the Chamber's been doing. Just a comment that maybe you can take forward. There was a lot of areas in the report where you scored 100% on your KPIs, which is wonderful. There were some areas where you scored yourself a bit lower, like 50%, and it talked about what you delivered, but not what you weren't able to deliver and why. And it might be good for us to hear some of the challenges, particularly if there are other areas where council can step in and support as well.
So the 50% scores relate. The 50% scores relate to where we're halfway through a contract, whereas the contract runs for a 12-month period. Where we considered that we'd already delivered well beyond what we ever expected to deliver. For example, the COVID voucher scheme that we did in conjunction with Hutt City staff and Upper Hutt City. I mean, we never expected to do that, and that was just a monstrous amount of work. So, to be honest, if we didn't deliver anything else for COVID in the 12 months of this period, I thought we would have done it just with that one particular program. It was just monstrous.
In that case, the 100% are even more wonderful, so thank you very much.
I should have taken note. It was Councillor Hislop and then Mayor Barry. Thanks.
Hi Helen, thank you for all your good work. I've had a lot of businesses talk to me about they've not only had the effect of COVID, but now they're having to give more sick leave and more statutory holiday days. I'd be interested to know whether they have commented or whether you asked about that in the survey. I can't recall, but and if you're hearing comments that is an added burden on them at the moment?
Absolutely. So increased sick. I think disruption around people who are not even sick enough to have traditionally been sick but have to stay away because they don't want to. I think that's where the biggest cost is, the disruption of sick, because it now means a whole lot more to us than it ever has. And the costs around adapting to COVID as well. So yes, we do hear of that. I've had some businesses talk about what the total cost across their whole workforce is of extra sick days. When you've got 100 staff, what sort of liability that is. So For some businesses that's very big, and for small businesses where the dollar cost may not be significant, the disruption cost is.
Thank you, Helen, and echoing comments from the other members around thanking you for your work so far in this financial year. Just commenting particularly around the work you're doing with young people and obviously identifying that significant gap around skill shortages in businesses across the sector. I've just come from a three-water steering group session today, which was really enlightening actually to understand that challenge right across the country and where we're going. I mean, what was very, 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 very clear in that conversation as well is the significant challenge we have, reforms aside, around our workforce to be able to deliver the ramp up in investment and infrastructure that we're going to see right across the country, but particularly here in the Wellington region. So I really just sort of take the opportunity to plant the seed that there is a big opportunity in that space. And for us as a council, when we think about what our strategic focus must be, that has to be one of them, even though it may not naturally fit in our purview because it's a big challenge, and we need to have started really tackling that yesterday. So I'm just planting the seed to think, because you're in this space at the moment, what sort of work can we be doing to scale that up, or what opportunities we can be looking at to ensure we have the workforce to be able to deliver. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you. One of the things we've been working actively on and not getting any progress with currently is to try and find additional contracts with central government for more employment, because we have got there's a real conflict between employers wanting to employ and schools not wanting to release young people, and then there's also roles that young people aren't relevant for or appropriate for. So we're working, continuously trying to find other ways that we can get some more contracts to help help our employers employ people and support, so they can continue to deliver all the demand they've got, because some of them have got a massive demand.
I've got Councillor Brown, then Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you for the highlights. The sort of future looking, but what do you think the biggest threat to Lower Hutt businesses is from COVID? Because hearing the supply is starting to be hard to get. Do you think that's going to be one of the biggest issues faced? I've got another question, but is that one of the biggest issues that are going to face the employers in the next 12 months, COVID related?
If you put labour and staff in amongst supply, then that would be the answer. So it's supply of raw materials and the people to use them, I think, is the biggest impact from COVID, really. Assuming we don't have a lockdown. I mean, if we have a major lockdown, then the rules get rewritten, It's the economic impact of COVID.
And my second question is just building on what the Mayor just said. It's really innovative what you're doing with the Chamber. It'd be good to share it with other Chamber of Commerce as well, because I know I just worked with the Timaru one who were looking at doing an initiative, but they weren't sure what, but it was something about joining people up. But in Christchurch there was an initiative with the council there where they committed to an amount of around 30 apprenticeships through City Care, not putting words in anyone's mouth, but there was a mechanism there to put it across all of the areas within council and committing to apprenticeships. That's something that could possibly work alongside the Chamber.
There are discussions with different parts of this council along those lines in terms of apprenticeships, and some of the contracts you might let to other external suppliers who, for example, your turf one immediately resulted in a local recruitment from Wainuiomata High School, actually, an excellent placement.
I just want to mention that City Care took on 10 people 15 years ago, youth in water reticulation, and 8 of them are now fully qualified, and some of them are managers, so it can be done, especially with water.
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Helen. This may cross kind of into the previous 6-month report, but also in the current 6-month report that will come in due course. I know that you're saying that the 16% of businesses that still might close due to the pressures that they're under. Is there any wave of new businesses that are coming through or inquiring around potentially moving to the Hutt or starting in the Hutt, which otherwise wasn't there previously? Is there opportunities coming for our business sector? And if there's any kind of anecdotal conversations there, could you share them with us, or is it too early to say?
There are businesses that are wanting to locate here. The challenge currently is around finding suitable premises. So one of the areas that will come through the long-term plan submission that we're currently working on will be around spatial zoning for commercial. So I've been reading lots of documents on this, not necessarily just Lower Hutt. It's an area that, well, we've got all this housing planning going on, which we absolutely support. You know, we're hearing plenty of stories of people unable to find facilities that would traditionally be in Seaview Gracefield. So unable to find the right sort of footprint. And even when you talk to people and they go, oh, we've got loads of commercial space, say for example in Upper Hutt, and then I get a report about Upper Hutt, if you just take the raw square footage, yes, there's plenty of space. But if you actually talk about the type of square footage relevant to the type of businesses who want to be located here, or the type of businesses we may have a competitive advantage in having located here because supply lines are here and that sort of thing, there's a big mismatch, I think. I'm doing more research on it, but so I think that is a challenge, that even though businesses want to be located here, you've got to think about those businesses that will supply services to all those new homes, like the heating and the plumbing and the electrical and the concrete placing and that sort of thing. They need to have a good, strong base here. So, and some of the infrastructure here is not supportive of that because there's not enough commercially zoned land that's green fields or seismically safe.
So, Dyer?
As a follow-on to that question, just wondering if you had any commentary around these sort of new business parks that we're seeing popping up. There's the Quarter in Seaview, there's another one that's just been advertised today, and that's taking sort of traditional Gracefield industrial space and providing a lot more intensification. Just wondering if you had any thoughts or whether you want to do that through the LTP process.
So I've been having started that discussion actually in the last couple of weeks, and so I'm meeting with some real estate company, and I think it's next week. And the comments I'm getting so far is that those sorts of premises are really useful for some types of businesses and will attract some types of businesses. But when you take companies like our larger manufacturers or our larger people have specific footprint requirements. Like there's a pipe manufacturer in Upper Hutt, and they have to have a long building because their pipes are long. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of gap. And so those small places are good for some businesses, for small businesses starting up, but actually when you have specialist areas, certainly the greenfield development opportunity is Foxton Levin, not Lower Hutt. And so there's real risk that those businesses, and I know of several that are already looking to move out of here and move up State Highway 1 to get onto better transport networks and greenfield development where they can create a site that is appropriate for their type of business. I think that's a real risk that we may want to take, but, you know, it is a threat.
Is it an end to them? It is. The recommendation is to receive this report. Is there anyone who wishes to move that? Councillor Rashid moves. Councillor Hislop seconds. Anyone with further comment to make? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Helen. A really good discussion. Thanks. The Seaview Business Association. This would be Mike Henderson, and is it Jen Houdelakis? Is that right? G'day. Thank you both. We have read your report, but there might be things that you want to highlight to us.
The report essentially speaks for itself. When I took over as the chair after last AGM, I had a number of things that I thought that could probably have been done better. One of which was that there seemed to be a tendency from previous chairs and previous committees to be given money to put in the bank and leave it, which annoyed the hell out of me. I mean, why would you give money by the council, ratepayers' money, to put in the bank and leave it? And I think I might have, even as far back as 2012, when I was first an elected member, I mentioned the deputy mayor at the the first AGM I went to, in fact, that why are these people got all this money in the bank, you know? But now I've come to, I've really of the opinion that if the money's given to you, you need to be able to spend it, you need to spend it appropriately, and you need to be able to spend it smartly, and you need to be very mindful of all the time of the fact that it's ratepayers' money that you are spending, and that your diligence and that your investigations, that everything you do in regards to that money has to be done really well, and it has to be spent well. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do. We have got a number of projects on the go. The major one at this point is probably the upgrades of the camera system through Seaview and the security in general. There is a problem ongoing, particularly during the summer months of the buoy races out there. They're creating havoc around about the place with the amount of rubbish and leaf lying around the place. The nuisance study to the liveaboard people at the Seaview Marina, plus of course up in the hills of Point Howard. We've got a number of things on the go in terms of that. Council officers are going to get some signage sorted out for us, reminding these people and everyone else that it's an alcohol-free zone for a starter, plus that there will be monitored camera surveillance and operation in there. Now, up until now, the camera system has worked, but it has not been that ideal. There have been a number of problems around what's working and what's not. In regards to the people that have provided the infrastructure and the service to keep them operating has been an ongoing issue for some years. So we are involved at the moment in a major piece of work investigating a new network, new cameras, new equipment, a new provider to come up with a complete, useful and up-to-date system that's going to benefit Seaview and its members and the committees and basically everyone in general. Now, it has been as easy as what I thought it might have been, and as luck would have it, been coming to the winter months, the issues with the buoy races sort of tend to disappear a bit. The burglaries and the offending does not, but we are in fact organising a meeting next week with all the stakeholders, including the previous suppliers, the guy that we want to do the jobs, to go and assess what there is, what we've got, what we can use and what we need to put together something that's actually fit for purpose for the first time in a long time, I feel. And the other reason we need to do this to that degree of investigation is again because we're spending ratepayers' money doing it. I'm very mindful of that. Now just to quickly go on with something that Helen mentioned in terms of the economy. There is absolutely no doubt that there is people starting to feel the impacts of COVID. Apart from the economic problems that come along with the lack of work, one of the things that has come to mind, which I have been talking to people a lot about, is and which council, in fact, as employees, as employers of employees, is going to have to deal with sometime coming soon, is the issue of vaccinations. And of course, with front-facing staff throughout our businesses and throughout your other businesses, the choice there between and finding a balance between personal rights and the protection of the general public, of course, becomes quite difficult when you're having staff facing people that are old and people that are immunity compromised and health compromised. You know, that's something that we're going to be talking about. There are some particular challenges in regards to transport infrastructure at the moment. Everyone knows all about it. There's no easy solutions for it. We need to find a solution. Transmission gully, when it comes on stream, is going to make things extremely much more difficult with people. I'll just grab that if I can. The amount of traffic that's going to come flying into the Hutt Valley from north, and then essentially going to have to try and get out of it again if they're going south down a not fit for purpose little corridor at the southern end of the Hutt Valley is probably going to cause us some problems. However, interesting what Helen said. She's actually gone now, but mentioning the issue of businesses moving out of the valley and heading further up State Highway 1 is actually dead correct. There is a drive for businesses to heading up to Otak and Levin, where land and buildings are cheap, and half the reason for that is that a lot of the major producers and suppliers actually have their bulk stores in Palmerston North these days, and this is where you need to be close to be able to service the Wellington region. You might recall the big laundry place, Elsco. Elsco bailed out of Petone and moved their premises to Palmerston North, and they service the entire Wellington region the premises Palms North, and that's something that's going to be going on and on. You know, we don't want to see that, obviously, because clearly Seaview, being the hub at the moment, a major industrial manufacturing hub in the in the Hutt Valley and all of Wellington, clearly has an advantage of it still remaining there in terms of rates for council going towards spending. So you know, we all know that we'd love to have another route out of the southern Hutt Valley towards State Highway 1. It doesn't necessarily have to be P to G, because of course most of us know that that's something that doesn't work in its current form, and what the alternatives are, I don't actually know. But probably something that's above my pay grade, regardless of which. But it'd be lovely, it'd be nice if we were able to do something along those lines. We also understand the importance of having infrastructure in place for public transport and for other means of transport, whether it's cycling or whether it's whether or not, but we do understand the absolute necessity for having less vehicles on the road, and if we have to do that by means of providing infrastructure and public transport, well, clearly that's the way it's got to go. I also have I wear several hats, and I try and keep the Seaview Business Association hat in place in terms of also when it comes to my own opinions as well, but sometimes I do get a bit mixed up. Jen, our coordinator here, has done a stellar job, and of a consistently high quality. We think for the money that we get from council that we bat above our well above our weight and box above our weight in terms of what we do. I've taken upon myself also to, and as we all have, to try and strengthen the governance group. I have in mind, in fact, and I mentioned this, I think to the Deputy Mayor last time I spoke to her, about approaching Kokiri Marae to get them involved. They're smack bang in the middle of our catchment area, and why no one's ever thought of that before, I've got absolutely no idea. But we are going to get in touch with them, and we're going to try and get someone to come along to talk to us, and we're going to try someone to come along and be part of our management group, which I think would be really great. I know that there has been talk about getting the panel done at the Arupa in Seaview Road. There has been some issues with cost in regards to that, but it's something that I would love to see something else appropriate go up on that wall there to brighten it up, and whether we can get it done or not, we'll just wait and see, I suppose. The other big elephant in the room in terms of business, of course, is the issue of rates differentials, which are going to be coming up over the next few months. Helen has touched on the issues of increased costs of compliance for business, and they are getting bigger and bigger all the time. Not only compliance, but there's general operational costs as well. Fuels, vehicle, lease, rental costs. The other issue, of course, is that Seaview is full. I understand that it has a current occupancy rate close to 98%. I know that Councillor Dwyer here has made comments in regards to the new premises going up in Seaview and Gracefield. Helen correctly points out that they're not big enough to attract really, really big businesses, but they are perfect for smaller businesses that we might like to try and get into the place, which would be great. There's no two ways around that. But essentially, anyone in a big business in Seaview who wants to expand, who wants to get a bigger building, is basically moving out, and they are going to Upper Hutt and buying a block of land, and they are building their own places up there from scratch, which is fine, because there's plenty of others who are coming in to fill up the gaps. So in general, that's little else I can say really. I do want to thank Council for the support of the Seaview Business Association for the past 9 years. I look forward to continued support in the future. Can I thank Gary Craig for his guidance and his mentorship to the Seaview Business Association. The Deputy Mayor has always taken a big interest in what goes on around about the place, and she supported me when I became the chair. I never thought for 1 minute that I was going to be the best candidate for the chair. But I am fairly forthright, and I do like to get things done. Bit of a bull in a china shop, and poor old Jen here, I come up with all these wild ideas and these schemes, and I'll email her, and she's thinking, and then she often finds a way to do it, of course, but that's the nature of it. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
You do sound fairly forthright, Mike. Thank you very much for that report. Jen, is there anything you wanted to say before I open it up to questions from councillors?
No, just following on from Mike's, thank you for all your support. I mean, I've been in the role for just over a year now, I think. And, I find a lot of the businesses in Seaview approach us for help, and I'd like to think that we, offer a good service to them. We do, I don't know if you read our newsletters, but we do profile 3 businesses each newsletter we send out, and I know the businesses really appreciate that. It sort of gets them out there, their name out there and stuff, so that's good.
That's excellent.
Probably if I can just add to that, Mr Chair, one of the things I did mention, of course, was appropriate use of money and use of people to make things better. We do employ Rebecca Reid from Reid PR. She does the newsletter, and she does it to such a high standard. The articles are great, they're well written, they're well received, and we have a really good readership of our newsletters. So keep an eye out for them in your email boxes, though.
Excellent. Any questions from councillors? I did have one quick one, or I'll nip in before Councillor Brown. So you're upgrading the CCTV network, but often it's a case of whether those cameras are monitored and whether you get the cooperation from police you're looking for, or is it just to capture data of boy races and that sort of thing? What's the next step?
That is a very good question, and yes, there is an issue of being able to capture data that we can report on to the police, particularly in terms of boy races. That specifically means registration plates. Because that way have got able to go and impound cars after the event. The police are underfunded. They're doing the best they can. I'd like to think the boy racer issue is simply an enforcement problem, and it should be just, this is your problem, go and sort it out. Never going to happen. I guess we're all going to try and do our bit, don't we? But having said that, though, the cameras also are useful in terms of seeing other things that are happening around about the place and vehicles coming in and out of the place where offences have happened. We would love to be able to get that connected up to the current system that is actually currently monitored, but my understanding at the moment is that it's full and it may not be able to happen.
Thanks, Mike. Councillor Brown?
Thank you both for the report. I got a question. You said that some businesses are starting to leave. Is it just a natural turnover, or has something changed, and are you getting the businesses coming in as well, or is that actually going to be a forecast problem for you?
It was interesting hearing Helen talk about that, the issue of a threat of businesses relocating to further outside Highway 1 to Otaki and live in, and more and more hearing the narrative of those who want to actually do it. The main reason is one of access to State Highway 1 to get up and down in and out of town and in and out of the country. And further up and down the country. Seaview is getting locked in a constant traffic jam at the moment. It's not only Seaview, everywhere is. You only got to drive anywhere on the weekend, you're in a line of traffic all the time. Try and drive in town on a Saturday morning in a line of traffic. Drive out of town on a Saturday morning in a line of traffic. It's not just Seaview. It's an issue that's happening everywhere. But in terms of people that are in business and who see it as a productivity issue, they want to do something about it. But yes, there are. As soon as something comes available in Seaview, someone else is moving into it every time. So that's not a dead loss completely.
Can I thank you both for your very full report? It really does sound like you've got a lot of irons in the fire, and you're doing a really good job there for the businesses in Seaview, and that's very important to the city. The recommendation is that we receive this report. Does anyone would like to move that? Deputy Mayor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Dyer. Any further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks again. To the South End Business Group. Mike Gray in the corner. I was suddenly aware that you'll be running into another meeting. Yeah. Right.
Apologies, Mr Chair. I should have said at the start of the meeting I need to shoot off. I'm attending a community meeting to talk about LTP stuff. I kind of thought it would be wrapped up by now. So apologies for not being able to stay, but I'll tune in on the live stream later on and catch up. Sorry.
Right. Let's, Mike, we have read your report, so maybe there's just a couple of quick
highlights.
I just
wanted to highlight a couple of things in particular that we're doing. One is we're underway with a lot of projects now. We're starting to get a bit of traction going finally out of a few years of putting the hard work in. So currently we've got the flow, footpath flow being happening, which is the major one that's on the thing. And straight after that, we're working on our roundabouts, so we'll have new signage going on the roundabouts. The one in particular, Andrews Ave, will be straight after that. We're looking at putting an installation, a major one, into Andrews Ave. So they're the highlights and things like that. A couple of things I just want to point out that have come out of the last meeting since our report. One is the increase of crime in the area. There's a couple of bars have actually had some armed hold-ups, etc. So our group are looking at ways we can try and, offset it or support. So that's what we're trying to do. I think the council need to be aware of this as that's going on as well. Right? So it's very, very main. The other one is in highlighting, there's a major problem about traffic flow, and we all know that. But since the 4 years that I've been in High Street, you just can't get a park there now, anytime. I'm just one business that relies on customers, and I'm talking about the major shift now is parking overnight. I rely on people to be able to park their vehicles in the area, just my business alone, and people just can't get a park in the area at all. And they're not going to park over the riverbank at night time. So the major problem is the all the things we want that is happening is the apartments and the growth of the apartments. And now we've got another 30 over the road from me, 30 apartments going in. That's another 30 cars, or 15 cars even. And 15 cars, I don't know where they're going to park because there's no room for them. So it's a major thing that the council really need to look at. And how we can combat that during the day as well as at night. Now it's filtering over top. So that's really about. You've got a pretty good report from us on what we're doing and how we're doing. We just want to make sure we get the funding to keep coming through to continue what we're doing. On a note, actually, when Helen was here tonight and explaining, and you had a few questions with regards to it, I felt like she was describing my business right now. What's happening. Staffing. It's so hard at the moment, and that's not just my business. It's a lot of cafes, restaurants around and stuff like that. The increased costs, just alone last week, my wage bill from last week to the week now, and this is through COVID, the following effects of COVID. I pay another $100 a week in rent, just like from last week. I pay $500 more in compliance with regards to the wage bill, etc., and things like that. And 3 suppliers have put up their prices by 10%. So there's an indication of what's happening in our businesses, and that's just only my business alone. All right. So, and on top of that, the sad thing about it is that my business has gone down approximately $2,500 to $3,000 a week. So that's an example of a business owner in Lower Hutt at the moment, a small business owner. All right, so it's not all roses and stuff like that. So all these contributing factors of traffic and things like that, and we're going to be faced with quite a major one when the Riverlink starts. And so it's very, very interesting where Riverlink is going to put a bit of constraint as well to get it operating. All right, so there's a lot of road closures, there's going to be a lot of work going around. Okay, it might bring people around, and that'll be great if we can do that, But, as a council and as business owners, we've got to work together to try and to combat this, all right? So that's all I want to say on that for the start. Thank you very much for the time, and thank you for showing an interest in as much as we can about the CBD. It's, South End is going to hit. I promise you this. By the end of the year, there'll be another 2 or 3 projects underway to make it look better. And that's all we have to do.
Appreciate the work you're doing, Mike. Councillors, are there questions? Councillor Mitchell.
Just a question, Michael, about businesses and staffing, and maybe your business in particular in the hospitality industry. Is it because we can't bring staff in from overseas, or is it because we're not training enough youth quickly enough to, be baristas or serve? Like, what are the real pressure points there? I
could talk personally here, big time. just to get a chef, I put an ad in the paper. I've had an ad, not in the paper, in Trade Me, I've had an ad in for over 3 months now to get something decent. I've had one Kiwi, one resident. The rest have been non-residents, and was not suitable. I've had no one coming from Welltec. I have a connection with Welltec. I have no one coming out of Welltec. They just filter away and gone. The industry's pretty hard industry to be in now. I make no bones about it. The minimum rate to pay a chef who is probably a little bit qualified or whatever, regardless on what country he's from or she's from, is $25.50, and in June it goes up to $27.70. So what that does is it makes other people have an expectation. So a business can only sustain a certain amount of rates and things like that. So you can pay a qualified person, but an unqualified person at that rate, it just doesn't marry up, sorry. And baristas, yeah, try and find one for me, I'll take it. One that's ready to work. The industry's putting pressure, we're under pressure at the moment 7 days a week. We're under pressure, everyone's working harder, and probably less staff because there's less turnover, yet there's higher wage. So it's very, very hard to find these people. Our industry is very hard now. Just heard yesterday, people come back from staying in Wanaka and into Queenstown. You can go on the street over the weekend in Queenstown and every place had dirty tables. This person is a supplier to me. He was down there. Dirty tables. The reason they had dirty tables? No staff. They're getting the customers in, the people in. They're not tourists, but they're getting people, locals. They can't even clear the tables. Can't get the people.
Blimey, we're getting some grim news tonight. Any further questions for Mike? Mayor Berry.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate you coming in, and thanks for waiting so long as well, given the items on the agenda. Just interested, because I understand that picture you're painting there and some of the concerns. Has the group been interacting with Hamid from the Central Dental Clinic and the work that's happened with the Queen's Arcade building? Because for me, and amongst some of the major challenges obviously we're seeing, that is a real shining diamond in what's possible on High Street and the like. So I was wondering what interactions you've had with him and I mean, as someone who's also looking to potentially invest more in the area.
So we're reliant on, the thing with business people, like myself, you're reliant on the outside of your business to try and get these things going. And it's been hard. It's been 3 years to get some of the meetings, 5 people, 3 people to the meetings. And people like him coming on board, we're relying on him and that connection, yes. And I think we've got a bit of traction, I mean, I can name the people that have come along to the meetings and stuff like that. But like we tried to have on Monday, and it was postponed because I had a personal thing. But we tried to have a bit of a group out doing this flow to the Bollard and stuff like that, and we had to put it off. I mean, we got one person committed to it, other than myself and someone else and someone else. So it's not an easy thing, and I know Cindy's trying to work on having a community involvement, and the business is doing it, but I'm getting to the point where it's better off just paying someone to do it. And it's, you want to talk to your business people, but we've got different meetings, and different ones come at different times. So getting them all together at the same time to make and talk about things, it's not an easy job at the moment. Everyone's hard work, but I understand hasn't made a connection as yet, but those we will do.
Councillor Rashid.
Just following up from them, Mr. Mayor, I've had a really lengthy conversation with Khalud and Hamid, and they're having the same issues finding staff, and with the new building they can only work 1/3 of their capacity because they just can't bring dentists or people related in the profession to the country.
Okay, if there are no more questions, then without having in front of me, I'm sure it's to receive the report, and I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. Anyone wish to make further comment? Mike, thank you very much again. I'll put those. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Mike, could you give our apologies to your meeting? We will be there as soon as this one's over. That's good. Thank you. The Information Services Activity Report. Lyndon, welcome. Sorry to keep you waiting at the back there for so long. We've all read your report, although there's an updated activity report that's been distributed now. I apologise that it's late. Perhaps councillors would like to read that at home and fire into elected members questions that may arise out of it, because there's a bit much to expect you to read it now. But Lyndon will highlight to us anything extra he wants to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The changes in that report, the only thing that has changed is the financial tables that went in the original report weren't right, so they would just been updated in that one. Everything else remains the same pretty much in the report. This is just updating on the activity, and there's a couple of things just to note. I mentioned in there Go Digital. That is our digital transformation program. We'll be reporting more information on that through audit and risk for future, if you're interested about that. So that's a significant amount of work to carry us through the next 4 years. The funding was approved last year, and we're in year 0 right now, which is just setting it up and making it, getting all the structure and frameworks in place to make sure that we deliver correctly. That's me for now.
Thanks, Lyndon. Any councillors with questions about that report? You're getting off lightly, I think, Lyndon. It was a good report, though. I will put the recommendations that you have on page 191, that we note this information and the other 2 recommendations there about 17A of the Local Government Act. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis, thank you. Any further comment to make? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks. Is it Juliet, or do we... Yeah. Juliet is...
Oh, no, sorry. It's Jenny, sorry, my fault.
Yeah, strategic property... No. Oh, the LGA half-yearly report? Statement of intent, I should say. Sorry, it's all good. My fault. Jenny, we've read that report. Anything you wish to add to it?
I bring you some good news after a long meeting. Just some brief information around LGFA performance. So last week our team issued some new debt, because we've got some debt maturing, and so we've issued 5-year stock at 1.5%, which is a really good low rate, and 2-year stock at 0.7%, so that'll be baked into our borrowing forecast projections that go into the LTP. So it's just some evidence of LGFA, working with LGFA and the good rates that we get and their good performance.
Fantastic, thank you. Are there any questions for Jenny? The recommendations in front of us, that we note the report and receive the half-year report, and that officers have not asked for any amendments to the draft LGFA Statement of Intent. Do I have a seconder for those recommendations? Councillor Hislop, comment. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Jenny. Health and safety? Or strategic property, but we'll do health and safety first. Thank you. Anything you want to add to your report?
No, probably just 2 points of note. Aggression still does remain high on our agenda at the moment in terms of addressing risk across council. That's obviously due to a number of different factors. We're noticing that's aggression from a person-to-person perspective, online and via calls coming in as well, so we're addressing that through mainly de-escalation trainings. We're trying to obviously prevent these things from occurring in the first place, but we're making sure that our staff are equipped and supported should those events take place, and our buildings are actually fit for purpose, particularly if it's a face-to-face face-to-face interaction. The other point of note is obviously we're very aware that COVID preparation continues, particularly in relation to the vaccine rollouts that are going to be hopefully occurring in July this year for the general public. So we've got free flu vaccinations going out to all staff at the end of May, but that will hopefully line up quite nicely with the COVID vaccines as well.
Thank you, Juliet. Can I congratulate you on the readability of your report with its graphs and so on? It makes it really easy for us to see where things are at in your neck of the woods. Councillors, have you got any questions for Juliet? Then I will put the recommendation. Oh, Josh has got a question. Go, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Just wondering if in the next update, whether you could drill down a little bit around the LTP engagement period, particularly around the aggression that's been shown from residents, to make sure that through that engagement process going forward we can improve things. It'd be really good to know if there's any learnings as well from that process that we can implement.
Not a problem, thank you.
Okay, the recommendation is that we note and receive the report, which I'll move. To have a seconder, please. Mayor Barry. No further comment. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you very much, Juliet. Gary. Strategic Property Portfolio Update.
Thank you. This is just a brief 6-monthly update on the strategic properties that the Council holds for strategic projects. So there's a number of properties already acquired. These are held for the Riverlink project. We have full control of all those properties, but we are in a long, convoluted process to actually settle the purchase price with the previous owners. This report, I have raised another property that we are in discussion seeking to acquire the laneway in Dudley Street, and this will give us a completely uninterrupted area for future development. It's currently owned by Kiwi Rail, and so we can't take it under the Public Works Act. We have to go through a negotiation process. That process is nearly complete, and so I'll be bringing a paper to Council seeking approval to purchase it shortly.
Thanks, Gary. Question from Councillor Hislop.
How long have Kiwi Rail owned it and why?
Well, apparently Kiwi Rail acquired it from Hutt City Council, so, and I have no understanding of why they own it.
Strategic investment for them, yeah. Any further questions? The recommendation is that we receive this report. Can I have a seconder, please? I'll move that. Seconder. Deputy Mayor Lewis. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Finance and Policy Work Programme. You have that work programme in front of you, including into next year.
Yep. Are we going to come back to the land sale proposal of 2 Middle Road?
Sorry, Councillor, you may have been out of the room. The owners of that property on Friday advised us they'd only just received the valuation report and they sought more time to get their own advice on it. And so it's going to lie on the table until our July meeting.
Thank you for that clarity.
Cool. So the work programme is in front of you. Does that come with some sort of... Yeah, I'll move that work programme be received and noted. Has anyone got any questions about it? Councillor Mitchell has got a question.
2 questions. The first one, it's good to see the naming policy coming up in the next cycle. I was wondering if we're going to have a workshop before there so councillors can express some of their views and aspirations for that policy review.
I think that sounds like a mighty fine idea, Councillor Mitchell, in view of where we've been. I think we're all going to want to get this right and make sure that we... So if that workshop says it needs a bit longer, then we'll see where we get to. So yes, I will take that away immediately.
And the other question I had about something that's not in the work plan, last May, I think it was, Council agreed to amend its animal control bylaw for cat management. And we were told that process might take 18 months, but it's not in the work plan for this year or next year, or the remainder of the triennium. And that's something that actually started back in December 2018, I think it was. So I was just wondering if there's room for that to be squeezed in.
There was no resource attached to that when Council took that decision, and you'll know that we have been entirely focused on the long-term plan. So at present, I'm not able to to advise as to when that starts. I'll come back to you at a later date.
Thank you for those two questions. So we're going to, I move that we receive this report. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mitchell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. I have no questions alerted to me. I declare the meeting closed at 5:50 p.m. and thank you all for your contribution. Right, get rid of this.